On Friday, October 4th, 2024, around 2 p.m., I sent an email to Maryland State Police Officer, or Detective, I should say, Detective Sergeant Scott Collier. Detective Sergeant Scott Collier in January of 2019 showed up to my residence around midnight, along with, I think, at least three other officers, maybe four, maybe even five or six. Anyway, they showed up in their black SUVs, their Chevy Suburbans, or whatever they're using these days, and they had a few questions for me about some Facebook post, about a YouTube video, and I answered their questions. Absolutely. I was cooperative. I was nice to them. Well, it's now been nearly 3 business days. Oh, actually, four. Four. Once, well, hold on. Well, I'll count it as 3.5. How about that? It's been 3.5 business days since I sent that email. No acknowledgement of it. The person that I blind carbon copied on the email, they received the email, but there was no bounce back saying that the email didn't go through. Now, I will be calling Detective Sergeant Scott Collier eventually because I want to make sure that, the email wasn't put in the junk folder or what have you. That's always a possibility. But the point of this video is that unless laws compel the police, they don't want to hold themselves accountable. I'm not going to be cooperative with the police in the future. If this is how you're going to treat me, when I want to ask you guys a few questions, why should I be so nice to you? Why should I make you the hero? Why should I say that you are Maryland's finest? Why should I trust you to protect and serve and defend the Constitution? Why should we respect the police's work when they don't want to answer our questions? When the people that asked you questions don't want to be as receptive. And believe me, I've thought about this and it's going in the book. After they searched my car and found no weapons, I should have done the same thing to them and said, hey, mind if I search your vehicles for any weapons? Well, of course they're going to have weapons. So, anyway, I just think the whole thing is funny when you think about it like that. When you turn the tables and treat government employees the same way that they treat you, you know, you see how ridiculous everything is. And look, I get it. They have a job. They have to protect tyrants. Larry Hogan, Wes Moore, that's their job. That's what they signed up for. It's shameful, but it's a job. It's a job nonetheless. And you know, I guess I'm expecting a level of respect that I really am just naive about. I mean, I thought maybe when you're nice to people, they're nice back. But I guess it's not the case when it comes to the government. I mean, look, I'll be nice to the front facing employees. Absolutely. I'm very courteous. I am one of the best behaved people when it comes to dealing with the government face to face. You don't see me, you know, doing what I'm capable of doing as far as shoving a camera in their faces. Now, I did that back during the lockdown era, but that was a different story. Things were really bad around that time. But, at this point, I think the best course of action is to write books, organize a militia, get the government scared to ever pull another 2020 again. We have every right to organize militias. Now, that doesn't mean any violence is going to happen. It just means that if we get screwed with again, I'm trying to censor my words here a little bit so that the powers that be don't suppress it. Um, if we if push comes to shove, an equal force needs to be able to push back. We didn't have that in the year 2020. I don't think we have that now. But if people are ready, willing, and able. Oh, but that reminds me. Apparently, there's a documentary about the Governor Whitmore kidnapping plot. Apparently, there's a documentary either out now or coming out. If you're not familiar with that case, basically people got sick and tired of the governor in Michigan locking down the state. So they said, you know what? We're going to do what the founding fathers enabled us to do, and that is to overthrow a tyrant. And unfortunately, a lot of the people involved with that ended up getting locked up. And, I believe their Second Amendment rights were violated. As far as I'm concerned, you're allowed to organize a militia, and unless you're actually in the course of taking the action, you can't arrest that person. Now, they'll try to say, well, you can't conspire to do this, you can't conspire to do that. I disagree. I think that's protected First Amendment rights. If you are actively violating people's constitutional rights and the government aren't holding themselves accountable, then guess what? You have a right to eventually overthrow them. Now, ideally, you do it without violence. And, they kidnap us all the time when we're doing things. And they call it arrest, but they call it, when we do it, it's called kidnapping or conspiracy to kidnap. Well, if the governor in Michigan was violating the law, violating Title 18 USC sections 241 and 242, along with, I believe that's I always get this other one wrong, 1983. It's another section of, basically, you can't violate people's rights. It's actually a crime to be an elected official and violate people's constitutionally protected rights. Unfortunately, that law is not enforced. You want to know why? Because the government typically does not like to hold themselves accountable. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. That's just a sad fact. So, Detective Sergeant Scott Collier, are you going to be a man? Are you going to be brave? Are you going to be amongst Maryland's finest and do a sit-down interview with me? I don't care if it's in person or remotely. It doesn't matter to me, but the video quality will be higher if you do it in person. I have the equipment to make sure it's a very nice looking video. I'll be fair, and I'll even give you the questions ahead of time so you are prepared with answers. And I'll even ask you the same amount of questions that you and your buddies asked me back on, I believe it was January 16th, 2019. So if you ask me 8 questions or 10 questions, I will only ask you 8 or 10 questions. How about that? Is that a fair deal or not? Otherwise, you can live up to what I said you guys were back in January of 2019, and I called the Maryland State Police cowards. Not because they're not doing brave things on a regular basis. Oh no. I called you guys cowards because you refuse to enforce the law against elected officials like Governor Lawrence J. Hogan Jr. I'm sorry. It's the truth. You guys can go after low-hanging fruit like me that are easy targets because, I don't have a force behind me. I don't have a ton of money to fight you guys in court with a good lawyer or 2 or 3. But you'll come after, you won't go after Governor Hogan. You won't go after Governor Hogan. Former Governor Hogan. Why is that? Why is that? That's the main thing I want to know. He broke the law. He broke multiple laws, but you didn't do anything about it. I want you guys to be accountable for that. I want answers. The people want answers. Thank you.